welcome back to Local Decision, and thank you for joining us. I'm Rusty Ray. This summer we're covering the candidates who are running for Blaine City Council in the primary election, and we're joined now by Ward 1 candidate and former longtime City Council member Dick Swanson. Dick, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No stranger to Blaine politics, no stranger to the city of Blaine.
Yep.
Why back? They named a park after you, you retired, there was all that to do, but now you're back running in a special election for a two-year term.
Two-year term. The reason is when Wes decided he was retiring, it means that with this election, we could potentially have up to 5 new councilmen. 5 out of 7 is not good. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I decided I would throw my hat in the ring and see if the voters wanted somebody who actually understood how the city works. If not, fine, I'll go back to being retired.
So you enjoy retirement, but it's a way to perhaps serve in a unique opportunity.
It's a unique opportunity. I put a lot of years and effort into making this a great city, and I don't want to see one fluke election destroy that, which it can.
Mm-hmm. In those 2 years or so that you've been retired, what has changed? What do you see are the biggest changes even in that short amount of time?
Well, the progress that's been made on Highway 65, which has been a dramatic forward movement of the project. Unfortunately, the last legislative session, by not passing a bonding bill, hurt it, but I'm hoping we can recapture the momentum that's been going and get that done.
Is that how you see the city's role in this, is momentum and keeping it on the forefront of the minds of those who really can bring the funding forward and bring the design to the larger project? Is that how the city can impact Highway 65?
That's the primary how. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that 99th is a city road. Right. So that means that we can concentrate our effort and design on that and working on how to do the frontage road that's going to have to go north from the redesigned 99th. Now 109th is a county road, so the county is going to have to work primarily on that project.
Right.
So.
Right. What is it about Blaine over nearly 40 years of living here and in all those years also serving on the city council? What is it about Blaine that continues to attract more and more people and more different kinds of industry and businesses to the city?
I think one thing is we've been a stable community. Developers know what to expect when they come to Blaine. The other thing is we're a community of neighborhoods. So each neighborhood has its own culture, its own spirit decor, and that's something that people look for when they come. The other thing is our parks and our walking trails. The walking trails were a major effort to get in place. And that's one of the things that I'm a little worried about, that right now we don't have any one person really in charge of the walking trails. And the maintenance in a couple places at least seems to be maybe sliding it to add. So that's one of the things I'm going to look into when, and if the voters decide to return me to office.
Well, a lot of folks like to talk about how much parkland the Blaine has in the different parks and the different areas and amenities like trails, but you're not the first candidate, you or otherwise, who have mentioned to us here that the maintenance of those facilities is what's really concerning to residents.
Yes, because if having a trail that's falling apart that you can't bike on well, or if you're a mom with a stroller that you have to pick the stroller up to move, I mean, that you may as well not have a trail in many ways in that condition.
Do you think that that's a question of staff or just allocating resources to make sure that they have what the staff that's there has what it needs?
I think it's probably somewhat staff, because the trail system there's 2 different organizations responsible. There's the park and the open space committee. Mm-hmm. But they each have their own main area of responsibility, and the trail runs through those responsibilities. So if a trail impacts a park, the park people are on top of it. If it impacts open space, the open space people are on top of it. If it doesn't impact either, I won't say it exactly falls through the cracks, but it has a slightly lower priority.
Okay. In those years, when you came to be on council, I would say the mid-90s,
Yeah.
in that time, and in those early years, were there decisions made as a council then that are still playing out now that you still can apply new ideas or can apply ongoing ideas to, that you see an opportunity even in a 2-year term?
Well, it's, to some extent, yes. Because some of the errors we made then, hopefully we won't make again. The one area that I'm personally somewhat responsible for is the mess at 89th and Highway 10. We should have spent a little extra money at that point and gotten rid of the gas station and not have the dual lights sitting right there. It could have been done if we had spent a little bit of extra money. So that's something that I've always been watchful for, not creating that kind of complication again. The other thing is that the signals on interchanges, we've got the Radisson Road one is one that we got done, but we've got a backlog of those, and that's primarily money and working with the county to get them all done. But it stops speeding with, and saves lives if you can get those lights in place.
What about with development, specifically residential development, certainly in several different areas of the city? It's continuing to just explode, especially in the Lexington Avenue corridor. Right. What about the decisions that were made in your time on council previously, whether it was 4 years ago or 10 years ago or something like that? Can you, the same thing, can you extend or can continue to apply new ideas to?
I think on the northeast quadrant, yes. We spent a lot of time and effort in developing a development plan for that quadrant. And right now, things are still going pretty much, there's slight modifications. Do you have an apartment complex here, or do you have it there? But the concept of an apartment complex falls in that plan. So those plans that we created then are still moving forward.
Has the idea of a variety of types of housing development, has the idea of that changed over all these years from when you were on council to begin with, and now when people think of having different options available for housing, whether it's affordable housing or it's multi-unit or things like that, have those ideas changed?
In the earlier days when I was on council, we really didn't look at apartments too well. And apartments are necessary if you're going to have affordable housing, right. Even though some people claim that apartment rents today are not exactly affordable, but at least you don't need the huge down payment that you do for a single family. But the issue today is where we put the apartments and how many do we have close to each other. Because one of my former police chiefs made the comment that the way to really control crime is through zoning. And part of that means you have to have different things in different neighborhoods, but everybody fits into the neighborhood. You can't have a group of people that think they're separate from the neighborhood. And unfortunately, as you get too many apartment complexes together, they lose that feeling that they're part of the neighborhood, which is necessary for a well-functioning city.
In the last couple of rounds of campaigns for city council this year and a couple of years ago, some of the younger candidates, folks who have just moved to the city and are establishing and growing their families here, continue to say things like, well, it's a safe community, we could always use, we need more police to keep it safe.
Yep.
That would speak to the fact that they consider it, and so many people consider it a safe community, speaks to councils in the past. Yeah. But the idea of always wanting more and making sure there's more patrol and more emphasis on safety certainly comes at a price. It's just not, you can't just say, hey, let's have more police officers.
Yeah, and police is a very complicated topic. Blaine has what I would consider an excellent police force. The problem is to keep it as an excellent police force. And the number of people going into police work is diminishing rapidly. The need for police officers is going up rapidly, which means you got a diminishing resource in potential police officers. So that means that salaries are going up, and in some cases, not Blaine, but in some cases, I would say that the quality of the hires are maybe going down a little bit. Blaine has kept its quality very well, and I like to think when I left in that we still have a police department that treats seniors, teenagers, all different races with a degree of comfort that they should get.
And they pay higher than some of the smaller departments really close by, and some of those officers come over here to Blaine to make a little bit more money and live in the same area and work in the same.
It's not only money, it's the chief.
Right.
The chief has an excellent reputation in the police community, and that helps a lot when you go out to hire experienced officers.
Speaking of chief, SBM looking for a new chief, and there's a committee together to working towards that. And I don't know where they are with it right now. I would assume that they're advancing through that. But the chief of an SBM, a department like SBM with a unique relationship to several cities and its positioning here in Blaine, how have you in the past and how would you continue to work with the leadership of SBM to make sure that the city of Blaine's getting what it should from that department?
Well, the fire department is actually controlled by a fire board.
Right.
And all the cities appoint members to the fire board. And that's where our main, but we also are a major part of the budget for the,
Right.
and that's a meeting of the councils and the city managers of all three cities that determines where money is going in and what resources are going to be allocated where. So through that process, Blaine has its input into the, plus Blaine is by far, I think it's at 76% of the budget. So it has some influence over the process.
Was this an easy decision for you to make another run at this? And you gave me the reasons why you did it, but was it an easy decision? Did you go back and forth? Did you talk to anybody?
I talked to Wes on why he was retiring. I've talked to some other people in the community, and some people said that I shouldn't do it, but the majority felt it would be better to have somebody back on the council who understood how the city works rather than depending on staff.
Did you ever think you'd get to that point when you're first running and you think, maybe there's an opportunity for me to fit in here and to learn and to grow within this role as a city council member? And now people are knocking on your door saying, we need your experience back to help keep things stable. Is that something you ever thought 30 years ago
at the
you
time
did?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I've got a master's degree in public administration, which is part of and I was working for the state, and with the Hatch Act at that time, about the only place you could be politically active was in the local, which is, and I was president of the Townhome Association, and we were having trouble with the quality of inspections on some of the roofings and things, which is why I originally ran. So it just kind of, and then suddenly it was 20 years later.
There you go. And now all these years later, where do you see Blaine's position in the region, in the Twin Cities as a whole? Population-wise, it's now in the top 10. But where do you see Blaine as a whole in the Twin Cities, as a suburb, as a community? Is in any kind of leadership position, you think, or is it growing into that?
Well, part of that is the stability of the council and how long, and the mayor. We've been lucky with a group of mayors. I'm going back to Mayor Fogarty. He was, almost nobody remembers, but he was a kind of mayor who was active with the community. Then we went to Mayor Tinklenberg, who was more of an activist in the metro area. Then we went to Mayor Ryan, who was deeply embedded in the community. I mean, he'd go out at 3 in the morning and help somebody cut a tree down if they were needed. And now we have Mayor Sanders, who's with his background is a little more regional, which is what we need right now with Highway 65 with his background in the legislature.
So it's kind of changing with the leadership, but also using the strengths of each of those leaders, you see it as. Okay.
And the other thing is that in the past, because we met on Thursday nights, we really couldn't take a leadership role in most of the community organizations because they all met on Thursday nights. Now that it's been moved back to Monday night, the possibility to be more active in some of the organizations.
Good point. Well, Dick Swanson, thank you for coming by today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.